This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
How's everybody doing today? Great to have you with us on the show. Opening half hour brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business, boat, motorcycle, RV. I know Steve Engel and I will be talking about Medicare products here in the next week. They handle it all at Purdy Insurance. Make sure you're fully insured, your needs are met, and they do everything they can to save you money. That's because customer service means everything to them. At Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury, go to purdyinsurance.com. In this NIL world we live in now in college, it probably should come as no surprise that Alex Caravan, who's really been an important player, for Dan Hurley at UConn in helping them win 2 national titles and getting to the second round this year. And he put his name into the NBA draft. You had until Saturday to put your name in. Today, he withdrew from the draft and decided to go back to UConn for what will be his senior season. Now, I thought at the very least, go through the process, at least find out what you should and should not be doing. Now, I don't know if there was, hey, come back now. There could have been a come back now or your NIL won't be available. I can't imagine that Alex Caravan had that issue at UConn. But that is where we are today in the NIL world. That's why when you look at, on the football side, Quinn Ewers, look, there was going to be no room at the end for him to stay at Texas. It's Arch Manning's time. And they made that pretty apparent to everybody. But it doesn't mean he couldn't have transferred someplace else. The question is going to be, could Quinn Ewers have made more money this year in college football than he could in the NFL? And the answer is probably for this year, yes. But that's where we are in the NIL world right now, Todd.
I saw that too. I also saw that he was already a millionaire before he stepped on campus because of NIL.
That is very true because he got the money from Ohio State. And
I just wonder, he's comfortable. Maybe he wanted. I mean, what was the rumored offer? It was $5 million or something from Oregon.
I guess
it was something like that at the end of the year. That was the rumor he was going to transfer if he didn't go into the draft. But I mean, you got to think it was going to be close to that if Carson Beck got $3 million.
The Carson Beck number is the number that's driving everything here.
Yes.
Because Nico Iamaleava, at some point I'll get it down pat. All right, I'm going to have to between now and October 4th. He kept talking about the conversation. I'm not saying he's talked about it. He has not. The conversation he's had, or his people have had, was about $4 million because of the Carson Beck number. We're also in the Wild West period. The House settlement has not been approved as of yet. It will be. I heard somebody say, Chris Vanini, I'm not so sure. It's like, Chris, just settle down. It's going to be approved. Right? All they have to do is come back with a roster thing. For goodness sakes, and no offense to the NCAA, it's not complicated. Yeah, wait. They make it seem like, I don't know, we're going to have to do radical surgery here. No, it's not. This is a Band-Aid as opposed to surgery. Just do it. Oh, we're dealing with people you have very little use for. I mean, really. Okay? And until then, there's no clearinghouse. No clearinghouse means contracts that are probably higher than they should be. But always remember, we always hear rumors of what the numbers are that are put out there. The schools never dispute the higher numbers because it makes them look good. The agent wants the higher number out there because it makes them look good. But sometimes the reality is different. There was a basketball player last year that went to Kansas State, and it was like a $2 million deal, and the whole thing. The number was $800,000. Now, $800,000 is pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't sneeze at that. I mean, that's usually 6 months of work for the suit. But, I mean, you know.
That makes you the king of Manhattan, Kansas.
You got that right. Oh, that's Matt calling. For goodness sakes. All right. The show's about to take a turn for the worse. All right, so we'll be back more in a moment. Brought to you by Purdy Insurance on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
Thinking about a new Hyundai? Here's the scoop. You're in the sweet spot with Sunbury Motors Hyundai. They have over 100 new Hyundais available that will not be affected by any increased pricing. In fact, hurry in now and save as much as $6,400 or 2.99% APR for 60 months on 2024 Hyundai Santa Cruz models. They have plenty. SMC has 40 2025 Hyundai Tucsons available starting under $30,000 with savings up to $3,700 or 3.99% APR for 72 months. There's also 14 2024 Hyundai Elantras in stock starting at under $24,000. No matter what you may hear, if you want to have a fun day, you have to drive a Hyundai. All new Hyundais come with Hyundai Assurance and America's best warranty, 10 years, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. See for yourself why we say together we can be alive in 2025 at Sunbury Motors Hyundai in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury.
We are brought to you by our good friends at Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. And time now for a segment that deserves to have an insurance sponsor.
Are you sure you don't want to talk to Mel Kiper Jr. about that?
Oh, Mel. Look, I do realize it's a show, so I do understand that part, which I try to emphasize to everybody. I said, just so you know, it is a show. But I don't know. Look, he has Shedeur Sanders has a Sam issue. What is Sam? Okay? Well, quite simply, size, arm strength, mobility. He's not strong in any of the three areas. That's just a football evaluation of the guy. Now, he'll get a chance to prove me wrong. He'll get a chance to prove everybody wrong. But that's how I look at it.
There you go. That's exactly the case from a football standpoint. And this is, I've been waiting since all this went down over the weekend because I have just had it up to here with the way things have gone down with Shedeur Sanders. And really, when you think about it, well, some of it's not his fault. So let's just keep it going with Mel Kiper for a second, because I thought him and Louis Riddick, to me, lost all of their credentials from the way that they reacted to the fall of Shedeur Sanders in the draft and their reputation and their credibility, honestly, because nobody in the NFL when you heard about him before, during, or after the draft had him as a first-round grade for those three reasons alone. It was the media that just created this whole thing wanted it for their clicks. And when it comes to guys like Mel Kiper Jr., like Louis Riddick, despite what I just said about them tarnishing their reputations with their horrendous performances this weekend in the draft, I truly don't believe that they got that stupid that quickly. You know what? You know why? What drove all that nonsense that anybody watched over the weekend? And if you did, God bless you. It's because of the suits and ties in ESPN that run that place, that have been running that place into the ground, because all they want are hot takes and clicks and not real analysis of sports. ESPN should no longer be calling themselves the worldwide leader because, A, they only care about two sports, the NFL and the NBA, and secondly, they can't even cover those sports correctly, a.k.a. just watch their draft coverage this weekend, which hit absolute rock bottom, and ESPN needs to totally reevaluate their whole draft coverage for next year, because that was unwatchable. Everybody was, to a degree, unwatchable. I've always watched NFL Network over ESPN any day of the week when it comes to draft weekend, but that was rock bottom for ESPN, and that is a complete embarrassment for anybody who does this for a living.
I can't find fault with what you said there. I really can't. I can't find fault with that. I think it is something that that I applaud your accuracy of it. I don't think there's nothing really there I can say that would be anything other than I think it's the truth what you said.
I mean, it's one thing to try to do things to get people to click and things like that, whether it's a story, whether it's the latest Stephen A. Smith rant, but this was literally trying to get a narrative so you can have your own clicks and try to literally will it yourself to convince yourself to say that Shedeur Sanders should have been at least a first-round pick and shouldn't have been all the way to the fifth round, and then act like the world was ending the further that he fell. I mean, that's what really irks me about this, is literally ESPN literally tried to will itself to a story that they know that they would have if it landed that way, and it didn't. Because guess what? The NFL doesn't listen to the media. These NFL draft guys and all the scouts that list for these teams, they work their tails off from the minute of the last part of the draft from one year, then they immediately move on to the next and start looking on these next guys, and they advocate for these guys that they go watch day in and day out, that they watch hours and hours and hours of tape. They're not stupid. They're not going to listen to what the media wants. They only have a chance to prove to the general manager and the head coaches and the coaching staff that the guys that they're looking at are worthy of being drafted by the team. That is a huge responsibility, and they're not. And unless you're the Falcons defensive coordinator and his son, I'll get to that in a second. Then that is one of the most serious jobs you can have in the NFL world. So they're not going to listen just because you want extra clicks. They're going to say what they're going to stick with the plan that they have evaluated for these guys. And for Shedeur Sanders, he was not a first-round pick. I'm sorry.
No.
For many different reasons.
Now, does he have an opportunity to, I mean, because, look, we all know there's a hit or miss all the time in the NFL draft. It's hard to train. There's still a guess no matter how many drafts you've done. I don't care whether you're Tex Schramm and Gil Brandt or Howie Roseman. There's still a guess as to how a guy is going to translate to the NFL, because it's such a chasm to go from college to the NFL. It is. I mean, that's why you see right now, for example, what are the Eagles debating? The Eagles have not said anything yet about whether they're going to pick up Jordan Davis's fifth year. All right. And it's coming time due as to whether they will. They very well might. But the fact is that Davis has played at times well and at times has been invisible. And so now they have to determine whether he's played well enough to get the fifth year or if he's been invisible enough to not warrant a fifth year. See, and that's, and the fact that they're even debating it on a guy that everybody said was a surefire guy. You can make mistakes, or it doesn't quite translate, or doesn't come as quickly as so. And Shedeur Sanders will have his chance to do it. How ESPN conducted itself, here's my problem with it. Jackson Dart gets drafted. Well, that's a big night for Jackson Dart, and all they did was ruin it.
How about Cam Ward, number 1 overall pick?
Ruined it for him.
And I think even ruined it more for him as a number 1 pick. I still think even Jackson Dart got a little more talk than Cam Ward, because everybody's comparing it to should have been Shedeur Sanders, plus the Giants traded back into the first round to get him. And there's just Cam Ward just sitting there, just taking number 1 overall, gets a quick little interview on ESPN and NFL Network, and that's it. He's gotten little to no attention at all, and he was the number 1 overall pick.
Right.
That's outrageous.
Right, exactly. And that's, I mean, they didn't quite make a big deal out of Quinn Ewers dropping, and ended up in the 7th round. Will Howard won a national championship. He's a 5th rounder. Riley Leonard quarterbacked in the national championship game. He's a 6th rounder. Now, these are all about traits, obviously. But these are guys that accomplished a lot in their career. Will Howard not only won a national championship as a quarterback, but he also won a Big 12 title. Now, have I seen some of these guys in person? Of course I have. I've seen Will Howard in person. I've seen Jackson Dart in person. I've seen Dylan Gabriel in person. I've got, so I have at least, it's one thing to see them on video. It's another thing to actually see them. Because, as you know, Brad Nessler and I have talked about that, the ability to actually see somebody in person. And I think, for example, let's take Will Howard. My evaluation is he's got the size, he's got a decent arm, but at the same time, right, he is not consistent enough. The Penn State game was a good example. He made a couple of fabulous throws. The throw to Thurman over the middle that went for a touchdown, great throw. The throw to Ibuka was tremendous. But he also threw the pick 6 to Zion Tracy. He also fumbled the ball at the 1-yard line when Zakee Wheatley caught him and knocked it out of his hand. I mean, that's the kind of career he had. So you factor that in because everything. What am I talking about here? I'm talking about all football things. And with Shedeur Sanders, they didn't seem to be willing to actually talk about the football things, pro and con.
Exactly, and that's why I said before about the draft scouts for each team. They're only focused on football things, and they go to every game for these prospects that they're assigned to for their region. They watch all the hours and hours of video. All those things go in. It's all football.
Well, here's the other part too. Speaking of football, how about your guy Josh Harris? They're going to build a new RFK Stadium.
I mean, this is what I don't get with him. It's just he's literally pressed and done all the right things with Washington. Now, granted, he is following Dan Snyder, so there is that grain of salt. But yet, you look at the Sixers are a mess, and the Devils are in the playoffs right now. They're probably going to get eliminated by the Hurricanes, but at least they're in the playoffs, and they were a decent team this year. I just don't get it. But good for Washington. I'm thrilled that they're back. They're going to be back in D.C. I think that's really cool. Yeah, and this stadium looks outrageous as well. I can't wait for that to happen.
I think they could get a Final Four out of it. They could get they could get a national championship game out of it.
They can get everything. Super Bowl, national championship, Final Four, you name it.
They can get a Super Bowl out of it, which is great. Look, and he's putting $2.7 billion into it himself. It's not just all the city. The city has to
exactly. Yeah, I think it's only 75% of it's coming from him and not the city. I mean, it's a total win-win. I just don't understand why he can't do this for all his franchises and just the Commanders. But that's another topic for another day.
But I think the NBA is different. They've tried the combination of the 3 veterans, like everybody's had, thinking that
you're right. I'll give you that.
That was the way to go, and that probably is not the way to go. At least in this case. And the bottom line is, okay, we'll take the Phillies for a moment. The Phillies had built everything around 5 guys. One of them was Ryan Howard, right?
Exactly. Ryan Howard
blows out his Achilles. And in some ways, that blew up the plan. The Sixers built it around Joel Embiid, but he's hurt so often, I think that blows up the plan. Plus, Embiid is not America's greatest clutch player either.
as I have said before, everything does start from the top down, but there is a piece of blame pie to go around with where the Sixers are right now as a franchise.
Thanks so much, Matt. Great comments today.
All right, we'll talk to you guys next week.
You bet. All right, brought to you by Purdy Insurance. Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Brewers Outlet, Sunbury Motor Company, and Purdy Insurance. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And Sunbury Motors, 4th Street, Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf. Online at sunburymotors.com. Ford Kia Hyundai, best in new inventory. Coming up, by the way, on the... I think Monday will be, the 1-year anniversary of me getting the Explorer over at Sunbury Motors?
I don't remember the date. For some reason, I just remembered it was a crappy weather weekend.
It was. It rained. No, it rained. In fact, I'm driving it back, and it rained all the way back. It was lousy. But no issue. No issue for this guy. Like, no problem. All right? Buying experience was great. And it'll be great for you as well because they treat everybody great. And they just don't try to force anything to say, hey, what are you looking at? What are you thinking about? Okay, well, since you're thinking about that, how about over here? This seems to match up with what you're talking about. And go from there. And then it comes time to go through the financial part. They go right through it. Great. And I wanted bumper to bumper. Great. Made sure that happened. And walked out of there one happy customer, and 360 days later, it's still one happy customer. Pre-owned vehicles, that may be up your alley because finances sometimes dictate that. Okay. It's fine. Well, they've got lots filled with them. And they go over each and every one, fine-tooth comb. Reason? Eases your buying experience. The Sunbury Motors Guarantee. Terrific service department. Quick lane. Inspections, routine, difficult. They handle it all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. So the Big Ten, when it comes to basketball, does things in 2 stages. Stage 1 is telling you who you're playing and where you're playing. Then stage 2, normally now, like around September 18th or 19th, they then, for a couple of jollies, decide to tell you when and where. Well, you already know where, but when and on what network. So Penn State released it today. So Penn State men's basketball will have home and away. Michigan, Ohio State, Rutgers. So it'll be the second year that Rutgers is in the home and away part. Michigan and Ohio State replace Minnesota and Indiana in the home and away part. So Michigan, Ohio State, Rutgers, home and away. Games only at home. For the first time ever, UCLA will come to the Jordan Center. USC, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan State, Iowa, and Illinois all at home. Road games only. Indiana, Maryland, Nebraska, Northwestern, Oregon, Purdue, Washington. So home and away, Michigan, Ohio State, Rutgers. Home only, Illinois, Iowa, Michigan State, Minnesota, UCLA, USC, Wisconsin. And road games only in the Big Ten: Indiana, Maryland, Nebraska, Northwestern, Oregon, Purdue, and Washington. And it's a 20-game schedule, 14 single plays, 3 home and aways, as we've mentioned. And always the favorite line of the entire release is as follows. Dates, television network assignments, and tip-off times for the Big Ten contest will be announced later this year. How about September 18th or 19th? Ay. You can't do it now? What else are you doing in the office?
Don't ask questions you don't want answers to.
You know, that is an excellent point on your part. You're on a need-to-know basis. You don't need to know. Like, okay, I got it. We're good. Okay. I mean, just for a couple laughs, right? For me, it's like, okay, I'd just like to know how my life's going to go.
Probably hoping that Washington trip isn't in the middle of the week in December.
That's possible.
Oh.
I mean, I do know that a year ago, the Big Ten did ask schools if anybody was willing to go to the West Coast for the December swing. And Penn State actually said, yeah, they'd be willing to do it. And the reason they said, I talked to Mike about it. I said, why would you, just out of curiosity, why would you be willing to do it? He said, Steve, just get out of the way. Okay. That makes sense to me. Makes complete sense. Now, is there a Palestra game on here? They're not going to announce that yet. Is there a Rec Hall game here? They're not going to announce that yet. All that has to be done working with the TV partners.
They don't have their non-league schedule exactly nailed down yet either, usually, right?
Right now, of the 11 opponents, I know I know 7 of them.
Yeah.
So I know there's 7 of the 11 are in there. Okay. And of the 7 I know of, 6 are at home and 1 is at the Mohegan Sun. So there you go. How about that? That's how much I know right now. Yes.
Does Mike make up those non-league games? Does Mike pick his non-league games, or is it?
Well, he has people doing this. Jimmy Martelli had been doing the scheduling before. I think Pat Dorney has a lot to do with the scheduling right now, because I know when I talked, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, I talked to Pat about the schedule, and he ran through what they had to that point. In other words, if he had more than 7, he would have told me. If he had 9, he would have told me 9. But he told me 7 of them at that point. So I think Pat has a lot to do with that right now since Jimmy's gone to VCU. Somebody had to take it over. So, and I mentioned the Mohegan Sun one. The Mohegan Sun one includes 2 games here, and then the game, I think you saw John Rothstein put out Providence.
Yes.
Yeah, so John Rothstein put out Providence. That's the Mohegan Sun game, and I think it's November 22nd. But there are 2 other games associated with the tournament that are here. So it's not really a tournament. It's just a one-day thing because, Pat looked at me and goes, 22nd is a Saturday. I said, Pat, I can't do it. I said, the game were Friday or Sunday, I could do it. Because I could drive up to Connecticut on a Friday, do the game, and drive back. Let's pretend I've never done that in my lifetime. You've not done that? Goodness gracious. Hey, what year was 2016? I did the game with Duke at 12:30 in the afternoon. Was off the air at 3, and then drove to Rutgers. Did the night game. I think that game kicked off at 8. Right? Yeah, it kicked off at 8. We were on at 6:30, and I walked into the booth at 6:45. I got there at 6:25. You ever hear that part? So Jeff Nelson went with me. Jeff's one of the greatest guys on the planet, right? So Jeff Nelson went with me because, he went to the Duke game. He said, hey, can I go with you to Rutgers? He said, then I'll take the team bus back. I said, sure, of course you can. So we're driving, and I'm going down what used to be the Connecticut Turnpike, which is now, it's I-95. And as usual, you get to Norwalk. It's all backed up, Norwalk. So I know a way to slide over to the Merritt Parkway. So I got off the highway, slid over to the Merritt Parkway, took that down to the Hutch, took the Hutch, got down over the GW Bridge, boom, and then swung down the Jersey Turnpike to get to Rutgers. We follow on the back of the Rutgers parking pass are the directions to the media parking lot. So, Jeff's got the pass, okay? And he says, okay, Steve, make a left here, okay, down here, boom, boom, right? Because I can get to certain points. Let's get to River Road. I know how to get there because I've driven there enough. But coming into the parking lot from this area, we get over, boom, we get to the top of the lot. Guy looks at it, he says, can't go in there. And I looked over. Now, it's 6:25. Now, I am not that concerned about. No, I'm there. In other words, I'm there. The key is to be there by 8 o'clock, right? And it's 6:25, so I'm in good shape. I'm not that worried, right? Even though I do know that there is a pool in the booth about what time I'm going to get there. Those guys had a pool, all right? So I said, well, what do you mean you can't get in there? I said, the parking lot's right there. And Jeff Nelson says, yeah, the directions on the back of your pass took us to here. We did exactly what you told us to. He says, and the guy looks at it, he says, excuse me, you two don't understand. This is a big game. Oh, my God. And Jeff Nelson looks at him, and Jeff never gets mad. Okay? I've never seen Jeff get mad. And I've known him for, 30 years? 31, 32 years? Never see him get mad. He looks at the guy, he goes, big game. He says, and he looks over, he says, this is the play-by-play voice of Penn State football. He looks at me, he goes, really? I said, yeah. I said, and at Penn State, they're all big games. He made us go all the way around. We had to go back out on the road, get down to River Road, come all the way back and around just to park in the same lot that we were there before. I'm like, God, what are we doing here? I mean, it didn't take that long to do, but it was like no common sense to it. Just let us in. We're there. But I had to go all the way to the other side, come back up over to park in the same lot I was looking at. Like, okay. So then I walked in the booth at between 6:45 and 6:50, and I think Jack won the pool. I think he beat out. I think because Joe Putnam was there. I think he beat out Joe Putnam in the pool. Then I drove back after the game, and it was. Remember that game? It was snowing in the fourth quarter. I mean, it was really. I mean, I remember Juwan Johnson blocked a punt in that game. Penn State shut him out 39-0 or something like that. And then I had to drive back because I had a game with Cincinnati the next day at 12:30. It may have been. In fact, the game may have been at noon. And I'm driving back, and once I got into Connecticut, it changed to a driving rainstorm. When I got back to the hotel at the Mohegan Sun 3:30 in the morning, I'm like, oh my God. I thought, walking in, going up to my room, I'm thinking, boy, this really was a long day.
I've had better ideas.
No, it worked out great. I had no problem with how it worked out. except for the snow and the rain part. I was kind of hoping that we could avoid that part of it because it is like it's just coming down in sheets. And at this time of the night, there is nobody on I-95, so it should be a little easier. Doggone it. Oh, well. But I got back, I'm like going, oh, man, I'm tired. But that's fine. It's different story, different day. Yeah. All right. So, have I ever done football and basketball on the same day? Yes, I have. Met several times. But I've even done it in 2 different states, with one of them not being Pennsylvania.
I was going to say there was always that one home Bucknell game that overlapped with a home basketball game that the SID staff was always pulling out their hair that Saturday.
Oh yeah. Oh no, yeah, no. I've done football, basketball the same day. I've done football, volleyball the same day, and I've done football, baseball the same day. So I've done that because the volleyballs, those are TV games. Then I remember being in Chicago and doing a game at Northwestern. And the game was on a Thursday night. And there was wrestling on a Friday night. So I did the game at Northwestern on a Thursday. Went out on the team charter. Boom, got a flight back to State College. And did wrestling on TV Friday night. And then I think the Illinois game which next was on a Sunday. So the team just stayed out there. And Dick Girardi covered a DePaul-Villanova game on Friday night or something like that. So he went over and he covered the Villanova-DePaul game. While I flew back from State College Saturday morning. He picked me up at the airport, and we drove down to Champaign together. In fact, I think Jeff Tarman was with us, and we had to pick up Jeff at his brother Jim's condo, which is right next to Wrigley Field. So we go up, we pick up Jeff. Now we go down state to Champaign. And you play the kids play the license plate game. Girardi, hey, let's have some fun. Let's count silos. To this day, I still remember it was 232. Let's count silos. Okay. Because once you get out of suburban Chicago, it's all farmland. Oh, goodness gracious.
Has he ever tried that with his trip up to State College?
Yes. I'm going to have to ask him that. Because we're going to have him on Friday's show. So.
Kentucky Derby and silos.
Believe me, as somebody who's seen a decent chunk of America, there's a decent chunk of silos out there. Okay? If you grew up on the East Coast, like right on the coast, right around the big cities, you might not know that. There's a lot of silos out there and a lot of windmills. Ay, ay, ay. So, yeah. All right, so the Giants podcast wants to interview me about Abdul Carter. Another student wants to interview me for his Com 360 project on the house settlement, and somebody else wants to interview me about Joe Putnam. I could tell everybody no. But...
Or make up stuff about Joe.
Oh, jeez. I'll tell you right now. You want to talk about a guy that is as nice Well, first of all, he's just an excellent announcer. Real pro. But, gee whiz, you want to talk about a guy that's just about as nice a guy as there is on the face of the earth. That'd be Joe. Hey, I mean, there's literally nothing negative on the face here you could even think of with Joe. Nothing. Just great guy. Yeah. And I mean, and like I said, just terrific announcer. He's just always prepared, smart. And if you absolutely need to win in trivia, I mean, you need a victory, he is your lifeline. You'd be shocked the amount of knowledge that's up in that head. Let's talk about great British monarchs. Joe? Mongolian wars. Joe? Literature. Joe? Sports. We got it. We're good. Oh, man. He knows a lot of stuff. So. All right. We'll take a break. Brought to you by Sunbury Motors here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.